Hello and welcome back to another episode of Are You Experienced, the podcast all about the business of experiences. I'm Joe Timson, I'm the founder of Conveyor, and my guest today is James Wallman, the author of Stuffocation and Time and How to Spend It, two seminal books on the cultural shift towards the experience economy. And more recently, founder and CEO of the World Experience Organization, which is an organization I'm sure many of you have heard of, if not are members of. James rather brilliantly captures the WXO's purpose as empowering experience pros to create experiences that make people feel more alive and that make more money. And that resonates really deeply with our own mission at Conveyor. But obviously that balance of great experiences and a great business is certainly not as easy to strike as it sounds. So this was a really interesting conversation for me, and I hope it is for you too. So enjoy, on with the show. James, hello, welcome to Are You Experienced?
Oh, from like the Jimi Hendrix and the book for people who went traveling in India all those years ago.
That's right.
Yeah, nice. Are You Experienced?
A little play on that, but also it's, I've been working with media and entertainment audience data and the other parts of the industry for a long time, but I am not very experienced in the world of experiences. And so the idea is I'm talking to people who are to sort of learn in public a little bit as I build out our business. So it works on many levels. Really appreciate you taking the time, especially given that you literally wrote the book on how to spend time. So we're gonna dig into a few things today, hopefully. So first of all, we're gonna dig into the books, Stuffocation, Time and How to Spend It, and obviously talk about the World Experience Organization and what you're doing now. But I start with everybody right at the beginning and just just walk us through where you started, how you got into thinking about the experience economy. And I see you started out in media sales, which all the best people do, myself included.
Yeah, wow, that was a while ago. But the way for me in was I became a travel journalist. Love doing that. It turns out it's not that interesting because you're just writing about stuff. And then through that, I did a piece on the future of travel. And I was fascinated. I was like, what do you mean the future? The future. Anyway, became a trend forecaster. And so I've been doing that since about 2003. And the fun of being a trend forecaster is you're just making up stuff about the future. And therefore, it's how far from wrong can you be? It's a bit of a parlor game, really, trend forecasting, because I think investing is future forecasting with skin in the game. And that's less of a part. That's a real game to play, I believe. But I did that for a bunch of years and it was really fun. And we I worked for this company called the Future Laboratory, and we advised companies from Gillette to Absolute Company to BMW, etc., on what the future held. And it was that work that I kept on coming across experiences, started to believe in this idea of the experience economy, also saw the cultural shift that was happening. So, read Joe Pine's book, The Experience Economy, and that's very much business side of things, of how things are changing in terms of how you do your business, the progression of economic value. Brilliant idea. But what I also saw and what I was a cultural forecaster. So trying to figure out how our culture was changing and, today, and therefore looking towards the future, and came to believe that we're moving from materialism to experientialism. And then wrote that book, Stuffocation. And went from there ultimately to the WXO via working for the British government, etc., as a sector specialist in the experience economy. But that was my journey. It was really like becoming a trend forecaster, trying to figure out the future, believing that we're moving towards experientialism as our defining value system, battling against the materialism that had driven the wild success of the 20th century and been really good for us in so many ways. Yeah, and so. It was trend forecasting, believed in experientialism, believed in the power of experience to make a better world, etc. And then the WXO is the sort of latest expression of that.
Yeah, okay. It's just zooming in on Stuffocation for a bit. So you've mentioned there, it highlighted and championed this cultural shift towards experientialism, which I think you coined that term, right? Experientialism.
Yeah. It had been mentioned a couple of times in a couple of academic papers from about 2007. But I wanted to call the book The Experientialists.
Right.
but the publisher was having none of it because Stuffocation is an awesome title. But
It's good. Yeah.
yeah, but the
Yeah.
experientialists, I sort of picture it as like the man in the white suit with it's kind of
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like not the people that gather more stuff, but the people that want to, die with an amazing set of stories. Eyes closed that final time. It's like, what did you do with your time? Veni, Vidi, Vixie, I've lived.
I love that. Yeah. But so you also said there that trend forecasting is how far from wrong can you be, right? So, a decade on from it, has it all unfolded exactly as you expected, or what did you get wrong? What's your kind of retrospective look on how it's all developed?
I didn't get a single thing wrong. I've been completely right with absolutely everything. Now, I used to write this column for T3 magazine, futurology column, making up the future. I did one thing I talked about was driverless cars. And I said by 2020 we'd have driverless cars on the streets, and that would be a thing. And that was wrong. I also talked about 3D printed trainers by about 2018, 2019. But the thing is, there are 3D printed shoes. There are parts of shoes that are 3D printed. And if you look at driverless cars of the level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's lots of elements. But I was wrong. And the stuff about it's sound like the stuff about experientialism is utterly thrilling, actually.
Yeah.
When I go back and I look at Stuffocation and, I do read my own book, which is a bit weird. But I go check it, sometimes and have a look at some of the things. And one of the things in it is about how high streets would change and how about instead of buying stuff, you'd go for experiences. And there's been a few things in particular that have happened in London, but you can see what's happening with malls nowadays, right? You look at Wake the Tiger going into Westfield. You look at the guy, there's this thing that's opened. The Netflix house, for example, right, in King of Prussia Mall, just outside Philadelphia. People are going for experiences, not things. And it was the two in London was Swingers in the old British Home Stores on Oxford Street, and I think Monopoly Life Sized, where up on Tottenham Court Road. So there used to be places that sold stuff, and now they're places that sell experiences.
Yeah. How do you feel about kind of social media and this idea of like? It seems like in some cases, experience as status symbol has maybe gone a bit too far in some instances, and it's less about the experience and more about just badging and kind of showing on social media and things like that. How do you feel about that?
I'm trying to work out here as you're asking me that question whether you've read that bit in the book about it. And I think it was chapter 8. I should remember this. How Facebook changed how we get status. And oddly, I was talking to one of our members, a guy called Brent Turner, who is this. That's one of the fun things about the experience economy. You've got so many, like Brendan, super smart people with these ideas. And we were talking about the symbolic aspect of consumerism. It's very much the evolutionary psychology. And what's his name? Jeffrey Miller's books. Interesting. So sorry to wander this slightly, but it's... Yeah, I mean, social media is social media. And the problem with... the problem is we've gone from a culture of character in the 19th century to a culture of very kind of Western, kind of rich Western point of view, culture of character to a culture of personality. And so what that comes with, it's like, show off who I am. Hey, by the way, I'm really interesting. And we did that previously through Goods. And, look at Torsten Veblen's work on a theory of the leisure class. That kind of change things, and what he hadn't planned for was social media, which flips things around again. So you get your status to express who you are through what you do rather than what you have. People get funny about status. People are really awkward. Nobody wants to admit, but status is, Tom Wolfe's work. If you watch a play or you watch a TV show, you can see the status between people. You see it in work, you see it in play, you see it in life. And it's actually a really fun game to play. And so people posting stuff saying, I've been here, and, and selfie culture, etc., is it's kind of empty, and it's the culture of personality rather than the culture of character, and therefore you're missing out. But at least you're doing something. And the one of the magical things about experiences versus material things in terms of happiness and status is you're still doing something. When you do something, even if you... you go to Fame Factory so that you can post a picture of yourself looking famous for the sake of argument, right? you're still doing something. And so therefore you get the magical benefits that come with doing something. That means you're doing something with other people. It's going to make you happier.
Mm.
Yeah. So has it gone too far? Nah, I don't want to. There are other problems in our society that I think are bigger than that. And has it gone too far? I mean, it's the some of the problems with society is not the things, but the
Yeah.
way that people just sell themselves to those things. I
Yeah.
had a device. I love this device. It's the device that I can, contact my wife and my mum and my dad and my kids and take pictures of them, and it's brilliant. At the same time, do I charge it in my bedroom? No, because I'm not a bloody idiot. Do I
Yeah.
make a point of telling the family, right, we're going to switch them off? We've got this thing called Brick where you can tap your kids are younger than this, right? So you don't have this problem yet, where you can tap it so it turns off all my work stuff. So that when I go camping at the weekend with my kids in the summer, I can't check LinkedIn. I can't check my email, but I can take pictures of them messing around climbing trees or trying to burn each other with sticks, or in the fire. Do you know what I mean? So there is a response. It's a bit like fast foods and ultra processed foods. You can be a buffoon and just eat all that shit, make life easy, and good. You will. That won't be good for your health, but you can also spend your time better and manage these processes. And that strikes me as that's, I don't want to get too philosophical, but that's, what's that stuff about the theory of choice, freedom of choice, about whether God gave us choice, right? We have choice to be good or evil. We have choice to eat shit food. We have choice to waste our time on our devices scrolling through stuff. We have a choice to eat well, avoid junk, waste of time, bad for you foods, and avoid junk, waste of time, bad for you experiences.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And I think, this sort of segues nicely into the second book and the sort of main takeaway from that, which seems to be that this idea of memories are greater than momentary pleasure, right? So that sort of long-term thinking around how you decide what experiences to do and why you do those experiences being much more of a long-term play than a kind of a short-term gratification play, right? And I mean, as a younger man, I think I was certainly guilty of conflating happiness and fun quite a lot. And those two things often aren't the same thing at all, right? And so what's your take on that? Well, yeah, don't get me wrong. They often are, but sometimes you would choose to you would probably do certain experiences or show up in different ways at experiences or holidays or travel or whatever differently if you were focused on the long-term memory of that experience versus just kind of absolute hedonic, kind of as much pleasure as possible. So what's the nuance there? Is it am I kind of framing that correctly, or in your view?
You are. Yeah, you are. You are. It's the thing about a human is that there's no A and B, right or wrong, on and off kind of thing, and so it's an over. I mean, most things are an oversimplification, but I've always had problems with the Stoics because they'd sort of deny emotion, and the idea that hedonism is bad is just entirely bad. And I've got real issues with Aristotle's golden mean kind of theory, because you need the spiky moments. Hedonism is so important to fit into a meaningful existence. But I think this is where, and I feel like I'm sort of pitching the idea in my book, but the idea of experience intelligence strikes me as really important, because if you have too much of one thing, you're missing out on the other things. So hedonism, wild, say drug induced, but not necessarily drug induced, just sort of like super fun induced kind of partying in the morning, those kind of, dancing with your kids in the kitchen is awesome. But so is building a startup. Building a startup, as you know, is difficult and challenging, and you're constantly making decisions that are right and wrong and going with it. And that's just hard, and that's hard fun. And there's a place for both. And sometimes there's a place to sit in front of the television and just give up. But knowing that it's acceptable to do that, because that, if you go for a run or go for a cycle or go climbing or do something that's difficult and challenging will get you into flow in a way that TV generally won't. But it's having the experience intelligence to sort of to choose the right thing as a mix of things,
Yeah.
If you had a dinner and, there's a place for sort of mango ice cream, but you don't want to have 7 courses of mango ice cream, you'd be an idiot. And you don't want to have it to begin with, although maybe a little, amuse-bouche, maybe tiny bit, but ice cream should come at a certain point, and you don't want to have broccoli and Stilton soup as a dessert. That would be awful. So it's sort of understanding, and I'm sort of being slightly blasé about those things, but just as there are some people that can put a record on or just play music, and there are some people who are DJs who can carry a room full of people on a journey and give them the emotional highs and the calm bits and have the pacing right. And there are other people that, cook food and can't make amazing meals. And I want to pick up on what you said there about that short term and long term. There's that work by Cassie McGillner-Holmes over at UCLA. Has done a lot of interesting work on this. But understanding that you're designing for 3 people, the anticipating self, the experiencing self, and the remembering self is having some experience intelligence, which means you choose how you spend your weekend better, and it helps you make better decisions.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that balance of long and short kind of shows up all over the place, right? And I think a lot about that in terms of brands, and I mean, the world I come from, the more of the sort of advertising, marketing side of the media entertainment industry. That's the constant struggle, right, between long-term brand impact and short-term sales performance and kind of short-term revenue. And I think in experiences in particular, that's it from a business standpoint rather than just a personal standpoint. That's something that needs solving. And you've got, I think, a lot about sports and this idea of, you've got, particularly in the UK, you've got this match day experience that is purely extractive, or for the most part, it's getting better in certain instances, but a lot of it's just extractive. It's like how expensive can we make the tickets, and how cheap can we make the production, so that it's just short. It's trying to maximize the match day take on that revenue, rather than thinking about what that should be, which is this sort of crucible of fandom that is going to sustain. If you bring a kid for the first time to a Chelsea game, and they're you're minting a new Chelsea fan, and the lifetime value you're going to get from that new fan is huge, right? So making that experience much more about long-term brand thinking and less about, extractive short-term revenue generation, I think I see that at least show up all over the experience economy, less so where it's the experience is the product necessarily, but more in these other areas like sport in particular, but music and all sorts of other places.
Interesting. From a Spurs fan, so if you go up to the stadium, it's like being in a CGI.
I was there for the boxing on Saturday.
Fantastic, right? Yeah, it's an amazing place. And what shocks me actually is not so much that it's extractive in terms of, partly because my dad and my brother have season tickets, so I always go for free. But it's not, and the cost of the shirts, right, is crazy. But what shocks me is that they don't really build a before and an after as the experience, and it's just the match, which obviously at Tottenham generally it's terrible football. So I don't understand why they don't work out. But I really, what you said there about minting a fan, because I mean, God, they're incredible consumer products, football teams, and if you could get that kind of loyalty to other brands, they'd be like, wow, how do you do? These people show up every couple of weeks and they spend loads of money. But why don't they, for a 3:00 kickoff, have the stadium open from much earlier and have something else going on? I mean, there's this stuff about non-match day, but not 62,000 people who love this thing. Why don't you give them other reasons to spend their money and give them it's and then at the end of the game, everybody just leaves. You're like, wow, hold on. You've got 60 odd thousand people that you could make more money from. Now, of course, for the true fans, if they've lost, all you want to do is go home and sort of commiserate and complain about how awful the players were. So I'm probably not the perfect person for that. But then you've got this captive audience. You think about an airport. You've got that captive audience. Okay, great. Let's hike the prices and let's try and get some money from them while they're here and make their, and I'm very interested in experiences. I'm very interested in the experience economy, and, we need the magic with the money and we need the commercial with the creative. Let's bounce it around. And so therefore, I was doing some work with Visa, actually, with these guys in San Francisco a little while ago. And one of the examples that came up was the bippity boppity boo thing at Disney where they turn the little girl into a Disney princess. And the conversation was around how much money Disney extract from people and how very good the experience is. And therefore, take my money, you're making my little girl happy. Take my money, I don't care. And so, It confuses me that more people aren't members of the WXO. We've got 1,100 members in 50 countries, and more sports stadia should be members because we have people sharing it. Sorry, I don't mean to. I don't know.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right.
How do you make a better experience? And a better experience has got two elements to it: make people feel more alive, make more money, and those two gel beautifully together. And if only there was a way to measure memorability, Joe. That's what I'm thinking about. If someone could come up to, we'll come to that, I'm sure. But there are it's thrilling because we have people share ideas of how to make experiences that make people feel more alive, that make more money, and people discussing how to do it. Because I think we're at such a sorry, you've got me onto a bit of a thing here about, coming back to my work in terms of stuffocation, etc. Is we're such an interesting point in the rise of the experience economy where you have people like you creating startups that can support this. We've got people creating new experiences. Think of Fame Factory opened like 3 weeks ago, Elvis going through its iteration. And as we were just talking about earlier, about to go with that latest thing, and the Wake the Tiger guy is opening next year. And there's that Pixar thing. I don't know if that's public. Maybe I don't talk about that yet.
It is. The Wembley one.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So many things opening. That's just the UK, right? So many things opening and people trying to figure it out. And from a certain point of view, of course, the Disney guys and, look at the Efteling over in the Netherlands, that they did a certain, good theme parks. But the evolution of the form, because people are coming into this from all sorts of different ways. It's just, for me, this is the 1920s all over again in terms of consumer products. And that was a revolution in design and thinking around, human-centered design and taking the ideas of the Industrial Revolution and making them make sense for people and giving people better stuff. More better stuff adds up to transformation in standards of living. And where we are at the moment is an evolution in the form, an innovation happening in experiences. And experiences are how people spend time. It's their moments. And moments add up to lives. And therefore, if we make better experiences, people will have better moments. Add all those moments up, they'll have better lives. And that is a transformation in quality of life. And it's coming from a, push-pull of people coming up with better ways to make better experiences. And we will transform quality of life. It's thrilling. It's an exciting time to be alive, Joe.
Yeah. So, World Experience Organizations, we've kind of touched on it a bit there. Do you want to kind of give, for people who don't know, and I think there's not many people who don't know who you are or what the WXO is, I think, that will be listening to this, but just give us a bit of a run through of that. And then I particularly want to talk about the venture builder, because you mentioned there this sort of tension between commercial side of the industry and the creative side, and how you kind of navigate that sort of tension between good experiences and good business, right? So there's a lot there, but I'll let you talk through what WXO is first.
Okay, right. So what is the WXO? I want to borrow from, what's his name now? The British guy who was at Iselin, crazy guy, Alan Watts. Mm-hmm. And Alan Watts had this brilliant, he say, what is life? And he does this ding, and he's like, that is life. It's brilliant, but I don't have his cut glass British accent, sadly. And that would be a lie. That's not what the WXO is. WXO is key is our mission to connect people who make experience professionals, so they make better experiences that make people feel more alive and make more money. Also good for planet and society. That strikes me as a key part of those other things. But we sort of started with a few of us in 2000, really kind of got going in 2021, opened the doors for people to generally join. Now 1,100 members in 50 countries, and that's quite satisfying because we don't have an impact, our members have an impact. Our other thing is as a talking shop, what we do is we gather to figure out how to make better experiences. Gosh, I'm a broken record. But really, that make people feel more alive and that make more money, and figuring that out through ancient technology of storytelling and spinning around the story feeling, story doing, people being, being the hero, being the protagonist, not just passive but participatory. All this stuff. Onboarding, how to do that well with rules, with nudges, the magic circle, stepping into it, the number of frameworks and approaches and ways is just, it's really thrilling. I've got 2 books on my desk that have been sent to me by, this guy who was a SVP or something at Disney and, Imagineer with his framework. And there's another one, the future of storytelling. And, it's electrifying. So WSO bring these people to figure out how we make better experiences. And that's one of the fun things about the experience economy is there's money in it. A lot of money being made by people now, and that's good because they're making money while giving people joy. And I think that's kind of important. So we do that. There's the sort of simple way to explain how that happens is like every day, every week, and every year. Every day we have this online thing. Gosh, I should be a bit more articulate than that. It's like an online community platform where people share ideas and also what they think of things. How on LinkedIn people are like, oh, it's amazing. Here people share, I didn't like that, I didn't like this, whatever. Right, didn't work. And that's important too, right? To break down. You don't post publicly about your failures generally, or when people do, it's a kind of, hey, I'm going to tell you how I messed up. And it's but generally people want to say how awesome they are. And that's a bit, it's truer. So we have smaller rooms. We gather once a week to have somebody present about what they're doing. And we do this London Experience Week once a year. We've also run it in New York. Our intention is to build these as experience weeks like fashion weeks. So we think that just as Fashion Week reflected and heralded the rise, the success, and here's what's coming in terms of consumer culture. Obviously, it's focused on a particular area. We think that experience weeks will do the same for the experience economy. We're working with the Mayor of London's people, London and Partners, to build the second London Experience Week. And what's interesting about with these annual things, they've been growing 50% year on year. And getting bigger and better. We've got people from 24 countries already coming to London Experience Week. Wow. We're 2 times ahead versus last year in terms of tickets, which is pretty awesome, especially weird given that we've actually got 1.5 times the space at the venue. We're at Ministry of Sound nice. In April. And that's really fun because one of the nice things about lots of people that do events, they do an event once a year or something, and they try and build a bit of a digital thing that supports it. We've gone the other way around. We were digital first and then IRL, which means that there's a sort of strength of feeling in the community already because everybody has a bit of connection from the weekly stuff and from the connections that they make. So when everybody comes together, there's this energy and vibe that is just... It's an amazing coming together of the tribe. It's sort of people that aren't members sort of like get caught up into it as well. Yeah. And look, I don't come from the background of building a community. I don't come from the background of running events. But the comments that we get from people are, it's like, when you build something and it's okay, and when you build something and people love it and it's got a excitement to it. I was talking to this guy the other day, this guy James Barlow, who has built he's in Philadelphia, but he's a Brit and he's done sort of like startup programs for MIT and stuff. And we were talking about an event that's just happened in Orlando, and I was saying, should I be there? I was like, I'm not going this year. And he's like, look, James, the connections that he made at London Experience Week have turned into this whole set of the most meaningful connections he's ever made. And so it's also slightly chaotic, but we kind of try and get the right balance of that, because experience design shouldn't be perfect. It should be something that connects people, makes them feel alive, obviously. And it's so fun to organize. I mean, I don't want to talk about the 14-hour days now, but because that period is just coming up now. But that's the WXO. How to make better experiences and connect people and the ideas.
Nice. And then so finally, very quickly, what about the venture builder then? I saw some sort of talk about that. Talk through that very quickly. There's like a venture studio, right, coming out of the WXO. And why do you believe that that's necessary? And what are the kind of the goals around that specifically?
It'll probably be a venture builder rather than the venture studio is the plan, or there's other people in this space who've gone down more the venture studio kind of route. And it's come from almost exactly the same place as where the WXO came from. So I was doing some work for the British government as a sector specialist in the experience economy to give a strategy about what I felt they should do. And British government, they waved the flag and say, buy British because we're the best. Turns out there are other, don't tell them that, but there are other people that make good stuff around the world. It turns out the French and the Germans and the Dutch and the Latvians and the Americans and, the Brazilians and the Mexicans. Guess what? These guys make amazing experiences too, and services. And so, but I believe in the experience economy. So I said what we should do is, or there should be, there wasn't a global organization for the experience economy to share ideas and nobody was doing it. There was something missing in the world. And I was like, well, nobody's doing it. The government didn't want to do it either. They want to carry on waving the flag and really focus on what they do. And I thought, okay, then I will do this. If I'd known the work that was involved, I may not have done it, but there you go. You go into these things, don't you? And after all, it's become an amazing thing. And obviously it's a lot of fun. And I wouldn't be here today. We would be having this conversation without doing that. That's where the venture builder's coming from. It's also, I went to the business school up at Cambridge, and I'm pretty pally with the guy that ran that course, an American guy called Chris Coleridge. And he, after running the course, he still teaches there and at LBS. He ran a venture builder for the climate crisis. Very successful. At one point, they were the number one European fund as well. It was both a fund and a venture builder, and raised a bunch of money and are responsible for, ventures worth, I think, 250 plus million or something like this. And we have a cup of tea every now and again. And I was saying that one of the things that I perceive is that there are all these amazing people with these amazing ideas, and all they need is 5 or 10 million to make it happen. And then they're going to change the world, and it's going to be the most amazing thing. And that's infuriating because they really need to understand the point of a minimum viable product, and you need to get traction and prove the point. And no, you don't need 10 million. You need to get far fewer to do that. But also talking to Chris that's what he'd seen. You've got all these people coming out of Cambridge who are brilliant scientists and they can change the world. But actually, no, you can't unless you've got a business model to make it work.
Yeah.
So baking the business model in early, you can't have this amazing idea and then figure out the business. I mean, that's the WXO actually, so I better be careful what I say. But there are loads of people with that as a challenge and a belief that they've got this amazing idea, but they don't know how to make it work. And that is, if you look at the great inventions don't change the world. It's when they are scalable and they can reach people. So it's not when the Wright brothers created aeroplanes. I mean, okay, so it wasn't really an aeroplane, but it flew.
Yeah.
It wasn't when flying was created that changed the world. It's really, Second World War, of course, the planes were crucial to the Second World War, but also then it becomes a thing in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s where you get mass tourism. And look at what that's done for, a country like Spain, for the sake of argument, people flying into Spain, that being such an important part of their economy, etc. Just as one example. So, but do you see what I mean? So the thing is, it's something having a brilliant piece of entertainment or experience that can be really powerful people, it's got to have the business model around it. And there are a few things. There's this really interesting trend towards these kind of vibration-led things. It's kind of like eyes closed audio, but it's kind of sub-audio things that are very interesting. There's this thing called Chromasonic in Los Angeles. There's this thing called Hum at the Hum in Las Vegas. There's something called Emergence in New York at the moment. There's a thing called Dream Machine in the UK. I've come across some others, but those are the ones that stand out to me. And those are all really interesting, but they're not at a scale yet that can yet do good for people. And I think they really can. I think they can really set people off. So the idea of the venture builder is, how might we get hold of these people with some of the mad ideas? And look, mad ideas are good ideas too, right? And then the magic of the venture builder is we don't decide what works. We let the market decide what works.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to bring those people together and be open. I mean, Chris has got, having taught both at UCL and run the program there for entrepreneurship, and ditto at the Judge Business School at Cambridge, it's about risk mitigation. So how can we minimize the risks, but also be open? There's a phrase he uses about the honeypot for innovation. You need the crazies to be next to the crazies, so more crazy, bad, weird ideas come out. And it's, I'm borrowing this from, trying to think, Rory Sutherland. To Ogilvy, a lovely line that his, the opposite of a good idea may also be a good idea.
Yeah.
And, crazy plus crazy might make something. And the venture builder is really being free and open to that. Now, it's also interesting, and I'll briefly wander down this line, that talking to some WXO members in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, they sort of noodled around this space and have ended up going down much more a venture studio kind of space, partly because one of the interesting things about experiences is you don't know if it works. Well, there's this line where you don't invest on decks.
No.
In experiences, because there's all the sorts of things that you can mitigate: the operations, the marketing, the finance, design, etc. But will that experience grab people or not? And you see this in a couple of the things. There's experiences that launch that don't work and ones that launch that do work, and getting that right is very interesting. You've got to see it in the flesh working, because you're dealing with humans, and humans, we're weird. And sometimes we love it, sometimes we don't. Hence the adventure builder. We're going to support people to go on that journey and be open to the wild ideas that come out, to, do what the WXO does. It's the same kind of play.
Yeah.
It's very much experiences can change the world and change quality of life.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, again, resonates massively with us. We are selling risk mitigation. Ultimately, that's what data does. So yeah, very, very interesting. And I'll be watching.
More than risk mitigation, though, because more than risk mitigation, what you're doing is helping people design. It's a design tool.
It is. So our analytics tool is absolutely. It's about helping optimize. It's about kind of, we talk about it in terms of proving performance and improving impact, right? And that's.
But you're selling hold on, and I get it. Look, you're selling, but what you're doing there is also focusing too much surely on the local maximum. Look, sorry, you do your own business and that, but I think you might be missing out on the opportunity of what you've got to help with the creativity as well. And I'm thinking about, there's the Peppa Pig thing that's launching. I've seen they're launching in Manchester. We had a really fascinating talk. Sorry, Joe, this is very rude of me to talk over. But in terms of how leisure development partners had worked with the creative and the commercial had worked together to think about whether it should be a pulsed thing or it should be, free roam, etc. And also the size and the space versus the market. But how that commercial considerations had informed the creative in terms of the size, etc., and how that should be. But what you have, I get it. Once it's built, you can prove. But can it not be used at that iterative phase to kind of go to notice the patterns of where people absolutely love something and try and not build just more moments, but architect that journey. So you've got the high points at the right places to follow the kind of arc that a really good story should have, following the hero's journey or Freytag's pyramid or whichever model you want to use, so that you get to the end. Because you could also correlate that with your NPS scores.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm just
No,
you
no,
know.
you're
So,
absolutely
I
right.
think you've got more than what you think you have, if you don't mind me
No,
saying
I,
so.
I totally agree. So we do a lot. We do some sort of upstream stuff as well. So we try and get involved with people from idea stage, right? So making sure that if it's thinking about like an IP led immersive experience, for example, you'd have, okay, we've got we need to understand the IP in terms of its audience. Is this an IP that's going to sustain long term execution like this? And that's about audience size, depth, depth of world and number of characters, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the DNA of that IP, and to figure out what sort of format that would suit for a particular experience. And then we could, before people even start building anything, we can help with kind of concept testing and ideas and putting those in front of, bringing those to life in as high fidelity ways as possible to put in front of an audience and make sure that its landing is intended. Then that's that kind of de-risking bit, so that when you've got a proceedable idea, let's say, you can then go in and build something, and you're at pre-launch, you're using our analytics product to say, okay, this is doing what it should be doing, its landing is intended. Now we're going to get some real people through it, and we're going to create that loop, that optimization loop, so that maybe it's ready to go on the road, or it's whatever. So we definitely think in terms of this kind of, the earlier you bring us in, the better, basically, because you can make sure that you're running in the right direction, staying on track, and then maximizing the opportunity once it's live.
Nice, and the product gets better over time.
Yeah.
Data, lovely. Thank you.
No worries. Cool. Well, look, thanks so much for the. We've gone well over, so I really do appreciate it. And I'll let you go.